Welcome to My Creative Corner 3, a podcast about quilting, crafting, creativity, with a dash of garden, chatting about current interests and life in my northern town. You can find show notes at mycreativecorner3.com. You can also find all of my social media, how to purchase a virtual cup of coffee, and all events on the website. Please feel free to stop by and leave a comment. I really appreciate everyone who listens. Thanks for stopping by. Welcome to the podcast. Hello, everyone. It's January 18th, 2026. I got looking at my podcast list and I realized this week I haven't recorded since the end of November. Well, it's been a little bit busy around here. Yes, it has. And I hope your holidays were busy and wonderful also. And now we've settled into the new year a little bit, 18 days. So I thought today we'd talk a little bit about the Analog Life project that I have joined online. It seems to be a very large trending hashtag on Instagram. Going to talk about Hygge, the Januaries, and a little catch up on what I've been doing. Yep, it's been really cold. I mean, 0 to below 0. Little warm up, a little roller coaster ride, lots of snow. And the Januaries have set in. You know, if you're not from a cold northern climate with lots of gray days, the Januaries come every year when you just want to burn it all down. You want to sell your house, you want to throw everything away, you want to start over again, and maybe reconsider all of your life decisions that brought you to this point. It happens every year. So instead, I've been channeling that energy by trying new things. And that's been kind of the theme for last year that I want to carry over into this year. I did not do a word of the year. I did not write out all of the things I want to accomplish. I want to embrace the Analog Life project, which we will talk more about at the end of the podcast. But it's just been one of those months where after a whirlwind of activity happened in December, I am tired. I'm tired of no sunshine, and I'm just tired of the same old. And everything seems to be in mountains and mountains all over my sewing space and my house. It's really not. It's a perception. So what has fascinated me this month, and it started around the holidays, is the monks walking for peace. It's a 2,300-mile walk. They started in Fort Worth. They're going to end in Washington, D.C. And I think that walking for peace is pretty cool. They're not promoting anything else. It's not a protest, and they're not trying to change anyone's faith. It's just peace. And that's what I think I've been searching for in January, is peace, to calm the restlessness. So I've been reading where they're at a couple times a day. I'm allowing myself to check social media, but using it more intentionally. And it's been a nice uplifting thing to focus on versus having the lens so big and wide that I'm consuming the 24-hour news machine, which I am not doing. And I'm trying really hard to only check on what's going on in the world a couple of times a week instead of multiple times a day. So in December, I have been was prepping for the holidays. So we're getting the house ready, and sometimes in getting the house ready for guests and getting ready for all of the gatherings and things like that, makes some parts of the house worse, because if you're like me, you have things in public spaces that you want to shove into more private spaces so that you can deal with it later. Or like I have multiple projects by my chair. Well, I don't need them all out when we have guests. So I started out the month incredibly sick with a norovirus with a high temperature of 103 for days. I do not wish that upon anyone. I know the flu is going around. So far, knock on wood, I haven't had that or any upper respiratory or lung problems, because that is never, ever fun. So I started out the month behind and then got more behind. But we did have the family gathering at my brother's house. We gathered at my mom's for Thanksgiving and my brother's house in the mid-state Michigan before Christmas. And then for Christmas Day, our son drove up from West Michigan and spent the night. We had a lovely Christmas dinner. The next day was a little bit of ice in the morning that turned into a lot of ice, but we had tickets to go to a bowl game, a football bowl game, Central Michigan against Northwestern in Detroit at Ford Field. We made it down. The weather was a little interesting on the way down, but we had a lovely dinner on the way back to celebrate just being together. And P.F. Chang's, believe it or not, is a place that has lovely gluten-free options for our celiac son. Celiac son. That's a terrible way to put it. Our son has celiacs, and that means he's to a point where he can't even be around gluten in a kitchen. So places that are very careful do a good job, and this is one of them. So we had a great dinner. We made it home. And then the next day we went on a beginning of our road trip to visit his sister, our daughter, in Virginia Beach with the grandkids. And he went to visit friends who were having a New Year's Eve bash after Christmas. And so everybody had a great time. We went to Virginia, and while we were there were two events that we went to extend Christmas a little bit. And one of them is Christmastown at Busch Gardens in Williamsburg. I highly recommend that. Get there early because it was still packed after Christmas. They have a few roller coasters open. Mostly it's just lots of lights, and there are some shows, but I'm going to tell you, you can't see it all, and you just pick and choose different things. Well, this year we did a little bit more rides, which is the girls are at the age, and our granddaughters, and I watched and took pictures because Grandma doesn't do rides very well anymore. I do not have good balance. I do not need vertigo, but I had a great time watching them have a good time. We ate. It's not too bad to eat at the park. You can't bring anything in, like water or snacks or more than a granola bar type of thing. But we had the German pretzel sandwiches, and everybody had a great time. The next day was a makeup tickets for my daughter's family, because they were going to go to meet the Snow Queen at Nauticus. There we go. It's Nauticus, and it is where the USS Wisconsin is. It's a museum battleship, and it goes way back to World War II up to more recent times, and they had it literally decked out with lights on the top deck. It won a reality show on TV called Christmas Light Fight, and it was gorgeous. It was really, really gorgeous, and they had the below decks open so that we could go down and look below decks. Of course, the Snow Queen happened to be the best friend of my daughter and son-in-law, and she did a beautiful job, and her significant other was there, so they had group pictures, and Meet the Snow Queen is a photo opportunity. Very, very well done. If you have an opportunity to go, you should. It was still very crowded after Christmas, but before New Year. Totally worth going. And if they do as many lights, there were millions. There was not a spot on the deck, on the that was undone, including all of the guns and all of the turrets. Everything had lights on it. Pictures do not even begin to really give you the feeling of what happened in all of those lights. And I have an astigmatism, so I understand I see Christmas lights as magic compared to people who wear glasses and or have perfect vision, because the lights were just bedazzling. I loved it. You walked through some Christmas lights hanging down. They had Christmas light um, balls hanging down in different places that looked like flowers. I just loved it. I thought it was very creative, very well done, and for a person who has some mobility issues, I still was able to walk the top part of it very easily. I had a little bit of trouble going down the ladders to the lower deck, but I went and I had a great time. I wouldn't do it every day, and I wouldn't do it 45 times a day like the sailors had to back then, but it was still good to go below deck, see the quarters, show the girls how the men and women on these ships lived. They were just fascinated. And of course, they have a little library and they love to read. So that was a big hit for everybody. So then the first of the year came. It was kind of a stay in night at their house. And then we headed back Saturday, which was great. The weather was good. We chose to drive down there, and it was an epic road trip. We went through Morgantown, West Virginia. On the way down, I would say if you have a lot of time and are a good driver through the mountains and you enjoy mountain ways that are a little off the beaten path, we did not want to go through Charleston, West Virginia, and the traffic around DC and the Pennsylvania Turnpike is a nightmare. So we went off the beaten path. It was a little bit slower. We were taking 2 days anyway. Gorgeous. I think we were close to parts of the Blue Ridge Parkway. One part is through the mountains for about an hour or two, and it was a little bit slow, but we got beautiful sunsets, and there was snow before we went through there, but not while we were going through there. So the roads were great. And then back home to reality. Work has been pretty busy, and I'm thinking it's going to slow down a little bit. This is Martin Luther King Day weekend, and I did go back down and visit my mom, my dad, and my sister for lunch. I was not able to see my sister because she had the flu during Christmas. So we got to talk, and we picked her up and went to lunch near where she works, got to see where she worked. It was lovely. You know, I'm finding that that's part of what I want to do more this year is make trips if I have to, spend time with those I love, and see my friends. And that brings us up to yesterday. I did something that I don't often do. I think I've only done a couple of times, and that was attend a sew day. I went with our Quilt Guild, had a sew day for the mid-January blahs, or the Januaries as I call them. They sewed for 6 hours, and I woke up with a terrible backache at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't even know if I can go do this. I decided I was going to go anyway. It was one of my goals is to make more connections with people at Quilt Guild, because you just can't always do it when you show up after work and attend the meeting. It's really taking time to do the sew-in. Now, they do a few projects every month at the meeting, but it starts at 3, and sometimes my schedule and my number of PTO hours is not always conducive. But I'm going to try and go in February because they're doing, of course, a Valentine's themed table runner. And I decided I wasn't going to take a million things to piece yesterday when I went to the sew-in. I thought I'll give it 3 hours, 2 hours if I don't feel well, I'm going to leave. By the third hour, I was tired and ready to go. My back was getting tired because it's regular fellowship hall. We meet in a church, so it's tables and folding chairs. But they had enough extension cords and cutting boards and irons. It It was great. Obviously, the Quilt Guild is used to doing sew days. So I took 2 quilts to bind. One is one I had done for a couple years. It's that 100 block that I did with Gnome Angel. And I split it into 2 quilts that are not quite twin sized. And I took one of those and I took the Lori Holt Scrappy Stars that I made into a wall hanging, and I made binding and I bound both of those. I now will flip the binding around and hand stitch because I decided I don't like machine binding and I like the results better of hand stitching. And everybody at my table, when I asked for advice on machine binding, said they hand stitch because they hate doing machine binding too. I'm done machine binding. I know I can do it. It's not my favorite, especially for quilts that are going to go into maybe a little show like our library, which the Stitchy Stars is going into that particular show. And I want to hang the other quilt at work behind my clients sit in chairs facing my desk, and there's a big blank wall behind them, and it's always nice to have quilts that I can change out and put on that wall. So I was shocked. I got the bindings made and put on in 3 hours. It's amazing what you can do. And I chitty-chatted with the people around me and said hi to everybody. I didn't get overwhelmed with the social anxiety that can come when you've been cooped up at home most of the winter, and made a few more connections and had a couple ladies say if I ever wanted to have a sewing buddy and a quilting buddy, like maybe in between meetings, because a couple ladies haven't been out in a month because of the weather and where they live, and they just also have no reason to get out. So maybe we can meet somewhere and have a little bit of a sewing afternoon and coffee or something. So that would be fun. So what have I been working on? Okay, so the last 6 weeks, I think it is, since I've talked to you last, I have made progress on the Sew Happy Quilt by Lori Holt. I am working on the iron, and it is 3/4 of the way done. Now, if you remember, it says Sew Happy in red at the top. The bottom has 8 blocks, 10 blocks, and that's the bottom. And in the middle is a great big old sewing machine, and I'm saving that for last. And then on either side of the sewing machine is notions. So there is a seam ripper, scissors, and a sewing notion. Do you remember the tomato pin? They have it on, she has it on a little pedestal. And then the iron, which is a larger block that seems pretty complicated. But if I break it down into tiny steps and take my time, which is all about the simple, mindful living that I'm trying to live, the slow life, it's come easy. The problem I had, if you remember, with this pattern is Lori Holt's sewing directions are amazing. The cutting directions that Riley Blake did for this particular pattern that was in one of the World of Lori Holt catalogs that you could buy is awful. And they have you look at the picture and they print a tiny, tiny little swatch of the fabric and tell you for the iron, cut this. Iron patch A. The Scrappy Star, but it's awful. It's like 5 pages you have to flip through every time. So that's a big thumbs down. But Lori Holt's patterns through Fat Quarter Shop, 2 thumbs up. I've not had any problems with those because I get frustrated flipping through directions like this, trying to match fabric to what's in the picture and knowing that the fabric I have is not exactly it. And the other part of it is if I have a pattern, like many quilters do, if you open it up, this is not like this, but this is the other type of pattern I don't like. You open it up and it says cut 120 red main color, cut 400 white. I'm not going to do it. I need block by block pattern with cutting directions. So anyway, that's one of my quirks. If you're one of those people that can cut out an entire quilt and then sew it. Kudos to you. My brain doesn't work that way. And we were laughing about that yesterday at Guild because some people were doing that. They just brought their fabric and they were cutting. So I'm like, you're cutting and talking and paying attention. I can't do that because I would cut 100 of the background squares the wrong size, and then you wouldn't have enough fabric. And a couple of them were cutting up kits. Dangerous, living dangerously. I also decided I wanted to do some things that I haven't done before or things that I have not done in a while. So I continued to crochet my granny squares, and I have my cardigans crocheted granny squares all done in one round of gray. I just need to join them together. The other granny square project I have is from leftover yarn that I did from a wrap last year. How much will I have? How many granny squares and what will it be? No idea. It's just a very, very calm, meditative practice. And knitting. I met my daughter. During our visit. I went and visited my daughter. I'm out of practice on this, can you tell? And I got a gift certificate to her local, well, it's a yarn shop nearest her that's really cute. And it's called Mother of Yarns in Chesapeake. And she also has been knitting her very first sweater. And she had Christmas money. I had Christmas money. So she gave me a gift card for that particular shop. And we went there because she and I kind of talked about it. And I told her I would love to see it. And I wanted to cast on some knitting projects. And I really wanted to find the right yarn for the piece by piece knitted blanket pattern that I bought. I found a beautiful selection of Barocco Comfort DK. It's a little bit thinner than some of the other DKs, but it's very, very soft and in bright colors, which what I wanted. And I also bought a purple green variegated yarn that I'm casting on and already have knitted the brim and part of the hat, part of a Free Pearl Soho, just generic hat. Your perfect winter hat. I have a crocheted hat that's wearing out, and I have a double knit hat that my sister gave me that's perfect for the sub-zero temps that are coming up. But then it's nice to have a lightweight purple hat because I love it. And then I thought maybe I will just continue to knit. I found one washcloth that was in my knitting projects, and I'm like, with enough yarn to finish it. And I thought I need to finish that. And knitting is very, very calm and meditative also. And I like the block by block style. I don't know that I could do a sweater, but I thought, wouldn't it be fun to just keep knitting blocks and I could make a cardigan because I love cardigans and layers is how I dress at work and it's how I dress for Michigan weather. So I'm going to keep making all kinds of blocks that are knitted. I don't know what I'm going to do with them, but they're not going to be washcloth. They're just going to be fun things. Even if I string them all together and make a bunting, or I make a scarf, or I make some sort of vest. I guess, are vests back? Are they in? I keep seeing vests being made and shown. I might try to make a knitted vest. And maybe a quilted vest too. I've got a vest pattern around here somewhere. And I have also continued the great decluttering and reorganizing of my sewing space. In the art of Swedish death cleaning, I've been working on that for the last couple of years. And my sewing space is one horrible spot. It's got very cluttered and disorganized, and it made no sense, which happens after a while. You have to go through and do that quite often, assessing what you need to do and how you want your room to look, what works, what doesn't work. And so I went through all of my fabric and I found a home for all of it that I'm not keeping. And I'm down to a reasonable amount of stash, which is not a ton, and a few larger cuts of fabric that I'm going to be able to use for backing. I am also not going to start any new quilting projects until I finish all of the old ones that are languishing. I have a couple of quilts left that need to be bound, that didn't get bound at the quilt sew day. And I found, my bin of orphan blocks that I, quote, want to do something with. And I found that there are several that it would be fun to use as patchwork backgrounds with some sort of applique on top, whether it's, a wonky flower or whatever. I want to try that. I've seen that done several times. Pat Sloan has done several versions of it, and I want to, if I use a larger, simple templates, I think I would like it more. I have a lot of interfacing, and I have a lot of stitch witchery and all of that I could do it. I got so much stuff. How did this happen? Because I've been crafting my whole life and sewing my whole life. So going through things, going through why do I have this? Why do I need this? What's broken? It's a tiny, tiny piece of fabric I'm not going to use. That kind of stuff has been happening. And it's painful, as in my back hurts. It's emotionally painful because I keep going, I want to burn it all down because I have the Januaries, which is not even really seasonal depression. It's just why is this way? And I would rather be sewing than cleaning and going through all this stuff. But I'm making progress. I am probably at the 40% mark of going through the things in my crafty space. I'm deciding whether or not I want to buy a storage cabinet. My husband has one in the garage that he's building as he is redoing his crafty spaces with the addition of a laser engraver, 3D printer, and he's got a space down in the basement for wood carving. And there's been a lot of changes in the house and the purposes of different spaces. But with that has been culling all of the broken and unwanted saved things from 20, 30 years ago and things that need to go. We've got several large pieces of furniture we've been storing that need to go, and we bought new recliners for the living room. So I have a very old, broken down 40-year-old couch and an old, broken down, oversized chair that we're storing until junk day in the spring, and you can put it out to the road, and if people want it they can take it, but if it's out there, the sanitation people will come and take care of it for you. I kind of look at it as a way of upcycling, because most of the things that you put to the road, if there's any life left in it, people will take it and upcycle it. These are not things you can donate to a thrift shop. These are like way too old and broken down and worn out. But if somebody wants it without having to buy it, and I don't have to have a garage sale, I would be thrilled. But a lot of the donation things are duplicates or things I have no longer any use for it, and it has some life in it, I will donate it. And we're looking for a couple things at the thrift shop so that we're not buying new. So that's always a good thing to help keep things out of the landfill. So that's really what I've been up to. A lot of decluttering, a lot of dusting, a lot of trying to get things in a organized state so I can actually sit down and sew and craft in my studio. I want to do some more watercoloring and art journaling, but I'm putting all that on hold because you just got to have a better organization system to make it work. All right, we have come around to the Analog Life Project. So on Substack as well as Instagram, there is an account. It's called Little Truth Studio, and it's little under what is that low dash underscore Little Truth Studio. Her name is Lori Roberts, and Lori Roberts is this is free. She's done a lot of work, a lot of background work. It is not too late to join up or start, but we started January 1st. And the Analog Life Project is, I'm going to read you her Instagram, snippets of her Instagram post about the Analog Life Project herself, her vision, and what her goals are, which are very similar to my goals. And it says, I'm old enough to remember life before computers, smartphones, social media, and now AI. I grew up with shoeboxes of letters from my grandmother, real paper, real ink, and real memories you can hold. Wow, do I know about all of that? Because I have a collection of stuff. That's why I'm decluttering some of it, but keeping the precious. Over the last few years, I've noticed how much my life has moved online. This woman has an online business, her conversations, photos, my correspondence, and I miss the part of being human that happened off screen, making things with my hands, connecting with people in ways that last, keeping tangible proof that I was here. She went on to say that the Analog Life Project is started because she wants to have more of things that she's seen made at the end of the year. Letters, drawings, books that she's read, leaves she's collected, and small saved moments that mean something to me. A year experienced in real time, not swallowed by scrolling or lost inside a screen. She says, I want to remember what it means to be human. And she goes on to say that she's not giving up phones, not giving up using computers, not giving up any of that, being more intentional, slowing down, not having fractured focus, multitasking, all of the notifications and jolts that we get interrupting all the time. So that's part of what she wants to do this year. She has a free printable every month. She's doing like a little workbook. She has partnered with her friend, and they even have a snail mail society where you can have pen pals. And to support her, I bought her Analog Life Project starter pack membership pack. It's so cute. She is a stationery artist, a stationery, that's her business. She sells stationery, her own designs, and stickers, and her art is adorable. And so, if you want to have more of the analog, there are several accounts. I've already talked about the Vintage Dollhouse on YouTube, and I've talked about Michelle Perry's Wonder Project. What she's doing for the Wonder Project is a year of making something every day. And that has been my project for decades, even if it's only 15 minutes, the 15-minute a day. I've also kind of restarted some of the jump starts that Fly Lady has. So if you'd like to have a jump start on decluttering and taking care of yourself, go to Diana Denmark's YouTube. These are all places I've gone to just get my new year started off right and in the right mindset. And you don't have to spend a whole 4 hours a day doing any of these things. It's the small, steady, focused times, which I've been finding actually is really what makes me feel human. And having more face-to-face time with family and friends, making memories in a way that's off a social media, off a computer, off my phone, and being present and meditating upon the things that I want to have every day. I have a very very good routine that works for me, that brings me back to feeling grounded and more peaceful. And I have a long morning because I don't have children at home that I have to get ready for school anymore. I've recaptured that time with journaling and a long coffee, my lunch at home, a break away from the office, and a mid-afternoon tea, and just meditating over the good things and taking a deep breath and just trying to refocus. So the hygge of it all is comfy, cozy. In the winter, it's warm beverages, my knitted sweaters and quilted jacket, which, by the way, is the warmest winter coat I've ever had. So quilted jacket, 2 thumbs up. I wear that bright yellow one, and everyone can see me in a parking lot, so no problem there. Comfy, cozy. We got new chairs. I spent my bonus money on something that I would have something to show for it, and what I needed. And I can be very, very comfy in that. I got some oversized coffee mugs that I use for my beverages. Not all of them have caffeine in them. And I've been gifted teas for Christmas, and I'm loving trying new teas. The other thing about comfy cozy is light some candles, have the scents that you enjoy. The soaps I've made in class, I'll be very sad when I run out. I may have to call the teacher and see if she has any for sale. Um, those things that make you feel very cozy. The other thing I'm doing is self care. And that's a practice I've been engaging in every day, trying to walk 3,000 steps a day, which I've been doing for a couple months now. Been in our garage gym once, and I rode, which was very good. I didn't have back injury at that time. I think the back injury I felt yesterday was sleeping like a pretzel or something. And I just think, getting outside, breathing some fresh air, being careful if it's 0 or below. But I watch my birds. I got a camera with a bird feeder, one of those. Oh, loving watching the birds come to eat. I'd like to see them every day, but they don't come to my feeder every day. And that's okay. It makes it more special when they do come. So that's what I've been up to. And if you want to have more information, I'm going to leave links to the Analog Life Project and some of the other things that I've talked about in the show notes. And I really appreciate those who have listened to the podcast. Welcome if you're new, and thank you for coming back if you are a returning listener. And if you'd like to leave a comment, you can go to mycreativecorner3.com and leave a comment on the blog post with the show notes and a link to the podcast. You have a most wonderful day, and believe it or not, I can't believe February isn't all that far away. And the Februaries don't last as long as the Januaries because, it's only 28 days this year, I think. My goodness, I gotta look. But anyway, you guys have a lovely day, and I hope to hear from you in the comments. And if you just comment as we have our conversation back and forth, out loud in your car or in your head, that's okay too. Create on, everyone.